Former NFL star Aaron Hernandez has been found guilty of first-degree murder, and he has been sentenced to life in prison, which is the mandatory sentence for that conviction. Now, he has been found guilty of one murder, but he could be found guilty in a hit-and-run case as well, or I should say a drive-by shooting case as well. So when the jury read the verdicts, he somehow pursed his lips and he just kind of looked away, didn't really seem as upset about it, but his fiancee and mother broke down in tears and started crying when this occurred, and he apparently told them to be strong, be strong. Now, according to reports, the first-degree murder conviction carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without parole in the slaying of a man by the name of Odin Lloyd. He's a 27-year-old landscaper and amateur weekend football player who was actually dating his fiancee's sister. Now, Lloyd was shot 6 times in the middle of the night on June 17th, 2013, in a deserted industrial park near Hernandez's home in North Attleboro. So it's interesting because during the court proceedings, they weren't allowed to say what the motive was. And it's possibly because of speculation. The judge said that there was too much speculation involved. However, the prosecutors did have damning evidence against Hernandez, which we'll get to in just a second. I want to give you a chance to chime in a little.
I mean, this didn't surprise me at all. Football, I mean, violence begets violence. I mean, we see what's going on with Ray Rice. We see what's happening with these football players. I'm not surprised by this. And, you know, I'm hoping that this sends a message to maybe the coaches, the NFL, to say we need to start creating some major change so that this doesn't constantly happen.
It's been a really difficult 2 years for the NFL, just because of the fact that there have been numerous cases of domestic violence. There have been damning reports about multiple players getting away with domestic violence, the NFL turning the other cheek. And then there's also the case of domestic violence involving Adrian Peterson, hitting his son with a switch and injuring him, making him bleed as a result. And then this case, and what I find fascinating about the whole Aaron Hernandez case is just how, I guess, unfazed he seems throughout the entire process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something psychological going on there. When I was watching him, I mean, clearly, if we really want to go a little bit further, his father wasn't there. And if we talk about that, the aggression that he had, no male support there in the courtroom, sort of like, I don't care what happens to me. There's something else playing there. But then when you go to how coaches train young football players and the men that they become, it's very much, don't care about the violence. Your job is to go on that field, hurt somebody, and to win. So if he's hurt someone and now he's in court, of course there's not going to be any like, oh, I'm so sad that I did this, because that's how he's been trained, to go in there, hurt, kill, just do what you have to do to make sure the other person is not going to, hurt you first.
Now, what's incredible is that the prosecutors kept urging Hernandez to confess that he was there when Odin was shot, and the lawyer refused to do so until after he was found guilty. At that point, the lawyer said, okay, fine, he was there, but he's not the one who pulled the trigger. There were 2 friends of his that were there. They're the ones who murdered Odin, and Hernandez didn't know what to do. Prosecutors presented a wealth of evidence that Hernandez was with Lloyd at the time he was killed, including home security video from Hernandez's mansion, witness testimony, and cell phone records that tracked Lloyd's movements. Lloyd may have been killed because he knew too much about another situation that Hernandez was involved in. It was an alleged involvement in a deadly 2012 drive-by shooting in Boston. But as I mentioned earlier, they weren't allowed to tell the jury that because the judge said that it was speculation. So there are 2 murder situations that Hernandez was somehow involved in. And by the way, the reason why cops immediately went to Hernandez is because once they found Odin's dead body, they actually found the keys to a car that Hernandez was supposed to be renting.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, he has something to do with it. Let's start asking some questions.
Yeah, but whether it's his friends that he's trying to protect and he's taking the fall for them, or whether he actually did it, there's something going on there. But this is a really side note, which I kind of wanted to bring up. I was looking at Twitter feed and some of sort of the comments that women were making, and we're having some of that inmate situation again where this sexy inmate, and people are glorifying him now that he's going to jail, and I was just kind of floored that this is happening again.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a 2-tier justice system for 2 different types of people.
Yep.
So if you are from a higher socioeconomic status, we all know that you have the resources necessary to hire a good attorney. you for some reason get more sympathy from prosecutors and judges.
Yep.
So that in and of itself drives me crazy. But there's also a two-tier justice system based on the way you look. And people who look a certain way get a certain amount of sympathy. And it drives me insane to know that women are sympathizing with this guy. He definitely murdered one person,
Yes.
and he possibly murdered another person back in 2012 in a drive-by shooting. So I don't care how attractive he is, you can't support him for that. With that being said, he is a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
But he's a terrible person.
Terrible person.
Yeah, there's no question.